You're listening to Career Compass with Patrick and Cha-Cha on Base 101.1 FM.
Good morning, Lagos. We're in the time where we get to talk about the workspace, work environment. If you have a job, there's some certain things your HR could just they set up for you, make you enter. So we're here with the almighty HR himself, Patrick Moore. Welcome. There you go with the applause so that I can rest.
Yes, I'll remain silent until I hear my applause,
Of course, don't worry. If you want me, maybe I did dance for you. I'm going to dance for you now.
Happy Monday.
Happy
great
Monday.
New week.
It is indeed. I hope your weekend was great.
It was great. Really good.
You know, ask me about my own. Don't worry,
yours?
I will not tell you because why would I be telling you to ask me? I will keep it to myself.
Chacha she can be sensitive sometimes.
I am, and I could be aggressive.
And that's related to what we're talking about today.
Definitely. Don't worry, I look like a puppy, but I be lion. Anyways, let's talk about aggression and microaggression. We do spend a lot of time at the workspace. You make friends, even if Patrick Moore says you cannot be friends with people in the workspace, that I will still take till tomorrow. Why are you looking up? You don't talk You talk
I said it, but put it in the right context.
Okay. I'll just ignore it. It is it. But anyways, so we also know that when you spend time in office environment, you meet different people. The people who are soft-spoken, the people who are loud, the people who are rude. And there's something that we call aggression and microaggression at work. Now, when you're at work, they say sometimes, shalai, don't just expose yourself like that. But let's get into it. Now, we're dealing with human beings, and as a HR, you know that human beings are quite difficult to manage, isn't it? Now.
So yeah, I mean, today's topic, aggressions and microaggressions. So let me start by putting it in this context. It's not all the time we see full-blown aggression. Like, are you mad? Are you crazy? Are you stupid? I can say those on air, right?
And they go.
All right. So aggression does not come out full-blown all the time. So there's this subtle, when you're diplomatically aggressive.
I never heard that one before.
You are, the aggression is with diplomacy. All right. So they won't tell you, they won't outrightly insult you, but it's there in the undertone. It sounds politically correct, but when you read in between the line, it's a diss.
It's commanded. It's that kind of thing that when you go home, like, I'm an overthinker. So when I reach out, I could just think to myself, why did this person say A instead of S? Why did this person say I instead of us?
Yeah. So those kind of dismissive, those statements that have the subtle undertone of aggression without being overtly aggressive. So, and the truth is, you would experience the microaggressions 10 times more.
True.
Than the full-blown aggression. In fact, the microaggressions are the prequel.
Yeah, it would just be tricking you, people. So, but what's the main difference, you would say, between aggression and microaggression?
So aggression is, when it's full-blown, overt, it's out there in your face. It could be physical aggression, it could be verbal aggression, it could be insultive, even sexual harassment. All those are forms of aggression, right? But the microaggressions are subtle. It could be, excluding you from, so there's another WhatsApp group apart from the main company's WhatsApp group. It's a subtle way of letting you know you are in, but you're not really part of us.
You're not part of the cool cats.
A friend of mine one day said, although this may not be too applicable in the Nigerian context, but just for a way of learning, he's a straight male, and he worked in a multinational with a branch abroad, so he was spending some time in the branch abroad, and next thing, one of the LGBTQ employees.
I promise you, when you say straight male, I don't look you. I say, male get different category now.
They're straight. So one of the LGBTQ colleagues accused him of being homophobic. And he was like, how? Why? He said, we noticed that when any of the straight colleagues invite you for lunch or dinner or on, out of office engagements, you accept. But anytime any of us, you see the word, any of us invite you for lunch or dinner, you always politely decline. So, they sensed it as a form of microaggression. So it could be, discriminative in nature based on age, gender, tribal or tribal origin or political affiliation, anything, that just has that subtle aggressive undertone.
Right. So those are some examples of microaggression. Someone says that talking over someone repeatedly is a microaggression.
Yeah, you're in a meeting and they don't allow you have your say. Okay, they make an assumption. You speak so well for someone who's from XYZ background. You're quite articulate. For someone that did not school abroad. Those form of, like I said, any form of exclusion, a decision is made without carrying you along. All those are subtle yet, very real forms of microaggression in the workplace. Yeah.
How can employees respond to microaggression without escalating conflict? Now, let me use myself for an example. If someone goes low, before I used to be like, no, let me be the bigger person. But me, I will enter the ground. If you go low, I will look for oil. So if someone brings microaggression to me, how can I deal with it? Or if I feel like someone is, being microaggressive to me, if this English come off of my mouth well, how can I deal with it without escalating conflict?
All right. So, like I said, this your career is going to be a full contact sport. So it's not expect to get hit by aggressions or microaggressions, especially as you grow. They'll come at you from different directions. All right. The first thing to do is to confront it in a professional manner. Okay. Even relationship experts will say when you want to talk about something that means a lot to you and you don't want the person to be defensive, rather than attacking the person, use I statements like, oh, Chacha, I felt disrespected by the comment you made.
Right.
Not Chacha, how dare you? The moment you start with a you statement, the person becomes
myself. How dare me?
You too. How dare me? But when you start with an I statement, oh, I feel, I felt, I think, I don't understand. That brings me to the next point. Try to clarify. Sometimes some people make some statements without, I'd say they are, what's the word? Unconsciously,
yes.
Right? They were not really conscious of the effects of their statements. They probably didn't give it a depth of thought. They just made those statements casually and carelessly. And when you ask them to clarify, you now force them to think about what they say. Sorry, could you clarify what you mean by people from my side? Or what do you mean by people like me?
Right.
Or what do you mean by you didn't expect me to do so well?
Honestly, I would have just made a mental picture and say, I will show you.
No. So when you ask those questions, okay, you're forcing the person to step forward or step back from that position. All right. Document those incidents if they persist.
Right.
All right. So if you've tried addressing it one-on-one and there's no improvement, you just start documenting, gather your evidence, and then, at that point in time, you escalate to the right channels, escalate to HR, escalate to your line manager, escalate to senior management, as the case may be.
What role should a HR play? What would you do if someone comes to you and says, this one they play?
Yeah, so as HR, HR's job first and foremost is to create safe reporting channels. All right. So everybody should know how they can report incidences of microaggressions without fear of being, what's the word? Called out.
Called a snitch?
This is not snitching. This is not snitching.
Called a blabbermouth. Okay, blabbermouth probably. But, people should feel safe to come forward to report incidences of microaggressions without any unwanted feedback to them. HR should be able to investigate things objectively and fairly to both parties, right? And then again, many times these things happen because people are ignorant, right? So
I think HR should be responsible for training employees on appropriate workplace conduct.
Right.
Okay. And of course, HR should promote a culture of accountability. So everybody should know that, I mean, the organization has zero tolerance to aggression or microaggression, and this should be the accountability process if you are found wanting in, observing proper ethics.
I'm curious. Can a manager actually prevent microaggression in their teams? Because sometimes it kind of feels like some is a character trait of a person to just be this certain way.
So I think managers play the biggest role because they set the pace, they set the example. They are the living examples of what is permissible. So there's the overall company culture, and there's a subculture within their own respective departments, units, or business units, right? So I think the manager needs to walk the talk. So in a case where the manager sets the tone by being the major aggressor, that aggressiveness is going to cascade, down to every other aspect of the organization or business. But where the manager leads by example, is respectful, promotes a culture of mutual respect. I mean, the manager promotes a culture of open dialogue and feedback. All right, people should not be afraid to express themselves. There should be freedom of speech and freedom after speech.
That one we go judge
that is very important. And then as a manager, you should address any form of inappropriate behavior immediately.
Now,
right?
What if this manager decides, these people should sort themselves out, like I'm not going to address nothing? What are the long-term effects? Like, how can that affect the workspace if microaggression goes unchecked?
Of course, it's going to come out in various ways. Okay, so the first issue is there'll be increased stress, burnout, and low morale. Of course, you're not going to be looking forward to a Monday morning of another battlefield. Okay, you come to work, you're berated, you're attacked, and these things have a way of chipping away your self-esteem. All right, you want to come out and make your contribution, and yet you're afraid, if I do all those subtle comments, I'm a lady, I should not be this, I should know. So it's going to chip away at your morale. Of course, if you're not happy coming to work, you'll be happy absenting yourself from work, isn't it?
They my house, they drink my gari.
I'm telling you just want to stay home and sip your tea, coffee.
You're bougie. You said tea, coffee. Look at me, I said gari.
It's tea, coffee.
Must be nice to be rich.
Yeah, of course, it would affect your productivity. All right, where you don't feel safe, you don't feel like your workplace is a safe space. You're definitely not going to be able to bring your A game. All right, and then if you don't feel safe emotionally, psychologically in a particular place, you just want to leave.
Look who's sounding like the Gen Z.
Mental health. So needless to say, it would affect your mental health, right? So you want to leave. And that would affect the reputation of the business. So there's one company, I don't want to call the name, where it's a popular case of the MD of the company was caught on social media berating staff. It was all over the social media. I don't need to remind us of the name of that incident.
What did it start with?
I'm not going to say.
Okay, you tell me later.
But I mean, the MD was a moment, and his moment was caught live on camera, and it affected the reputation of the organization. Really went down at that period. Of course, there are legal risks. This is a world where it can be costly, especially when where you've trampled on the rights. By doing so, you've trampled on the rights of employees. They'll take you to court.
I need to know if someone can recover professionally after being targeted by aggression or microaggression. Yeah,
so yes, you can definitely recover with the right support system and self-care. The first thing to do is acknowledge the experience. Okay, it's not on you. Okay, what happened may not have been your fault. All right, and then seek support, either from a friend, colleague, mentor, your HR if you can talk to your HR. The bottom line is you don't have to go through it alone. All right, document and reflect on it. I keep on saying, keep a record of incidences, okay? You may need to refer to them later on. All right, then do things that rebuild your confidence. I said earlier on that microaggression or aggression of any sort at work, it erodes your confidence in your ability, because it just chips away at, you know, your esteem. Okay, so you need to do things that would help you rebuild your confidence. Get a degree, pursue a certification, volunteer, you know, just all those small wins to help restore that sense of confidence in you. All right, consider the environment. If the environment is aggressive, right, there's nothing you can do. The environment is aggressive, is toxic, all right, and it remains unresponsive to change, you may need to explore new opportunities. All right, that is something. And then use the experience as fuel. All right, look, everybody have their battle scars. All right, so you know, you could learn from the experience. And I'd say personally, I've worked in an environment that is culturally toxic before, growing up through the ranks, and I think that has helped shape myself as the leader I am today. Maybe I learned from the experience and it's made me more empathetic,
right? You
know, so I'm more careful about, you know, how, you know, people who work with me feel, because I know what it's like to go through, you know, those kind of aggressive, full-blown aggressive and, you know, micro-aggressive environments. Of course, it doesn't mean I'll mamby-pamby you, I'll push you, but I mean, you still have to be emotionally intelligent while at it.
Right. So a lot of people obviously make mistakes when in the workspace, in fact, in life. But what would you say is the biggest mistake people make when they're dealing with microaggressions in the workplace?
All right. So the biggest mistake, right, is either staying silent or making it personal.
I remember the time, I think I must have shared the story in, you know, one space that I worked in, and my line manager wanted me to do something. And the next thing, I mean, I was the one putting my all. It was during COVID.
Yeah, you shared
2 weeks. Was it 2 weeks? Yes, for 2 weeks straight. I was the only one doing everyone's job. And I couldn't go on air once. He just said, do your bloody I said, who you they follow talk? He said to me, call the MD if you have a problem.
Wow.
And what did I do? I called the MD. Sharp.
Aura for aura.
And he just apologized. And, you know, shortly after, me and my line manager, even till date, we're still good friends. So at least I did not do aura for aura. I know shout for head back.
You didn't shout back, right? Okay, so that brings me to the second point. Don't react impulsively. Okay? Don't respond with anger or sarcasm. Don't let your reaction not be knee-jerk. Okay? You have to, even if you feel justified, okay, you don't do anything to immediately escalate the tension, right? And don't ignore the behavior either, okay?
Right.
Hoping it will go away, you know, would just, you know, sometimes they say silence is consent, okay? So when you keep quiet, you're tolerating the behavior, you're encouraging the person to continue with that behavior. Another mistake is failing to document. You know, keep your evidence. If you're going to lodge a complaint with evidence. Seek support. Don't try to do it, wing it alone. All right. I mentioned earlier on, don't assume intent. Ask questions. Somebody says something, ask, sorry, what did you mean by what you said? Can you clarify? You know, you may find out that it was in your head. You know, there was practical case where somebody said something and the person heard something else.
Yes.
And then the person felt like this person was disrespectful or aggressive towards them. Meanwhile, the person said A, you heard B, and you are reacting to B, and the person is seeing a B reaction to an A statement. So, you know, seeking clarity would help. And finally, respond, don't react.
Right.
You know, document it, address it directly through the appropriate channels, and but don't react, I'd say aura for aura.
Don't be a cha-cha.
Don't be a cha-cha. Don't give it aura for aura. Respond appropriately. Don't react. Don't let people push your buttons.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Pato.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, word of advice, and how people can reach out to you just in case they can't get to their HR?
All right. So on a closing note, I'll say workplace aggression isn't just a personal issue, right? It's a cultural one. sometimes the root causes go deeper than the surface. So let's work together to build an environment where everyone feels safe, seen, and empowered. If you need to reach out to me, I remain Patrick UMO everywhere you go. I was about to say, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat. No Twitch. Patrick UMO, reach out. You can tell me everything you cannot say to your HR.
You're listening to Career Compass with Patrick and Cha-Cha on Base 101.1 FM.